We are on the lunch break in the questioning of Jon Boutcher at the undercover policing inquiry. Jon Boutcher was Deputy Chief Superintendent of the SDS. Right at the end, he was the officer who shut down the unit. His role in modernising the merger of anti-terrorism branch and special branch initially was meant to him sort of improving the unit, making it fit for purpose. He decided that was not what he was going to do. He shut them down. We have heard the strongest testimony from any witness at the undercover policing inquiry about the disaster, as he called it, of the SDS. He said that they were unjustified, unnecessary. He used all the superlatives. We had another apology, a direct apology to Maya, which he extended then to all the women who were deceived by undercover officers. He referred to the coercive control that Rob Hastings committed against her. He said that the inability of senior managers to understand what was actually going on and not act on it was as serious as the misconduct being carried out by the undercover police themselves. He said that the senior managers were buying the nonsense propaganda that the SDS were putting out. He said they should have been shut down years earlier. There were so many things he said. I mean, I would say that if you're going to watch any of the undercover policing inquiry and you don't want to get too annoyed, then you should definitely watch what we've just heard for the last hour and a half. I am also aware that as we are doing this, there is a mass arrest taking place outside Westminster Magistrates Court of supporters of Defend Our Juries who are supporting Palestine Action and the proscribement. To listen to the witness today is to think that the political policing that took place under his watch then has gone away. It has not at all, quite the opposite. So though it is wonderful to hear someone be so condemning of the SDS, we have to see it in the light of what we know is the reality of political policing today. I'm joined by Emily Apple. What have you made of what we've just heard?
Pretty much what you just said. And I think, it's been so good to hear someone say those things and even around the criminality that they were involved in, that there were things that happened that wouldn't have happened because of them.
Yeah, he directly said that his biggest regret was he didn't look into the fact that so many people were incited to do criminal acts by SDS officers. He said that he should have looked into that and he didn't.
If the SDS's reputation wasn't already in tatters at this point, he's wiped the floor with them. There was nothing that he said that was positive about them. The group shouldn't have been infiltrated. Their intelligence was exaggerated. That they behaved appallingly. He had nothing good to say about them whatsoever. And actually, it's incredibly good. It's incredibly useful. It's incredibly refreshing. But I think the point you just made, I've been sitting there feeling so agitated because while all this stuff is great, my worry is that the inquiry and everyone just goes, oh, well, this was that rogue unit. This isn't about political policing. This isn't about the political policing that's still going on. And also with the MPRU, that we know it still continued for years after he shut down the SDS and all the same practices continued. So it's not even like it stopped then. I mean, I'd say as well, he talked about how good SO15 is. SO15 still leads on domestic extremism and protest policing. He talked about the protection for journalists that exists. I've got intelligence reports from SO15 from like 2-3 years ago that report on me being a journalist at a protest. I've got other ones that have the same assumptions, the same exaggerations of kind of like, I was walking around the arms fair and I was obviously checking out the fence. This is from like 2023. I wasn't. I was walking from a cafe to a camp. But that same level of threat, that same level of exaggeration exists in reporting today. So to suggest that that was just about the SDS, that isn't about protest policing, and that isn't what they do, is disingenuous, it is wrong, and it is actually dangerous to the climate that we are in now. He talked about how, Met police officers, they join the Met because they want to keep London safe. And I was thinking, so they're really keeping London safe by arresting, nearly 100, I think there's nearly 100 people planning to take part in the action today, and will arrest 100 pensioners for terrorism, for saying they support direct action to prevent a fucking genocide. That's keeping London safe. It's still all about profit. It's all about keeping that establishment control and corporate control, and that is at the heart of policing, and it still is. And however refreshing it is to hear what he was saying today, and it is refreshing, and it is so good, and it is so vindicating of everything we have said throughout this inquiry, everything we've said about the spy cops, everything we said about the SDS. Every one of us who's given evidence or written a witness statement that has called out these lies and exaggerations and threats, it is incredibly vindicating. And it's very strange because it's, I'm sitting there with this sort of split brain of, this is incredible. This is what we need. And this is what the chair needs to hear as well. But, and it is a big but, nothing has changed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The session began with him being taken to the SDS value for money document, and this was something that he requested from the officers when he came into the unit. He wanted to find out what over the last 5 years, what had been the biggest areas of achievement by the SDS, and he said what he got back with, what we returned with, what he now knows to be a falsified, exaggerated report. He was asked questions about it. He turned to the chair and said, "This inquiry needs to realise that anything that you get from the SDS or their managers is likely to be falsified, likely to be exaggerated, and you need to take it with, have a high scrutiny of the accuracy of anything you hear from them."
Absolutely, that was quite incredible. And for those of us who have poured through hundreds of pages of intelligence reports going, this is wrong, this is exaggerated. With the Wellings one, this document that just lists all his contacts, all the things that he could do that are incredible, that we all found quite last minute and had to scramble around doing a statement going, no, none of these things are true. And I think still without that, so you talk about things like, yes, he can admit to all those things, but I think without all the core participants and us coming together and taking apart these documents, I'm sure that there wouldn't have been quite that level of this is exaggerated or being able to sort of say categorically this is the case, because I think Wellings has been one of the officers that they've tried to portray as one of the good ones because he didn't have a relationship. There's like they said, they kept going on about how he was one of the best and all the groups he infiltrated and stuff like that. So it's really good that he has been taken apart so thoroughly.
Yeah, he hasn't had a good word for any of them, to be fair, today. No. He says that, he referred to the justifications as being obscene. He called it inappropriate. All the superlatives, literally all the superlatives. It could not have been more damning. When he was shown some of the intelligence reports that had been filed by Robert Hastings, he said this never should have existed. He said it should not be done. It is wrong.
I could have almost been like listening to us.
It was, yeah. It was very strange. To have some sort of, there was a thing about the discipline. Should they have been disciplined? He's like, yes, they should have been disciplined for coercive control, for the sexual relationships, for the violence, for the drug taking, for the drink driving. There were so many things they should. He said he couldn't understand why the Department of Professional Standards had not been brought in, and discipline had not taken place.
So there's a follow-up question to that. So why didn't he bring them in?
Well, quite absolutely, yeah. He said that he was too focused on shutting down the unit, moving on, and setting up what he talked about his vision for a network of undercover units across the UK doing serious crime, for anti-terrorism, for this new threat, this new world of Islamic-inspired terrorism. I think he is by all the superlatives, by being so critical. He is covering for the fact of, because what we know about this man is that he went on to run undercover operations in the UK throughout the 2010s. He is now he is in charge of the police service of Northern Ireland. He is currently running the most intrusive undercover operations that exist. He bragged about this himself right at the beginning. Yeah. This is not somebody who is against undercover policing in the slightest. But he has been absolutely unequivocal that animal rights, environmentalism, protest groups should not be subject to intrusive undercover policing. It is not appropriate for anything to do with public order. I mean, it was put to him that he perhaps didn't have enough of an understanding of the importance of public order policing because he had come from the anti-terrorism world. He denied that, but he said that he certainly didn't think that this kind of policing was appropriate for that entire area.
No, definitely, but also, you know, it's the fact that they've abused this term public order policing throughout, and you know, like it's such public order is such a meaningless term because they've applied it to anything, you know, from the race riots to 3 people sitting in a road, or you know, sometimes like someone holding a stool. Well, it might have been a public order threat, you know, like. And I think it's worth saying as well, because like the inquiry is not going to say this, and you know, because it just leads to an acceptance that there was this Islamic threat that we had to counter Al Qaeda. Actually, we shouldn't have gone into an illegal war with Iraq, where we were all spied on, where our protests were shut down, when we were trying to stop an illegal war that led to, you know, some of the terrorist attacks that we've seen, and that the whole counter-terrorism strategy that developed from that is deeply rooted in Islamophobia and racism, and that still exists today. And I think it's really important to say that we do not accept this false premise of, oh, there was this threat from Islamic terrorists that meant this huge repression, this use of counter-terror laws that has been used to criminalize communities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is absolutely obscene.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, just going through some of the other things that Jon Boutcher was asked about, we were taken to a number of documents that kind of went through the regulations, the introduction to the SDS, which showed, you know, kind of the advice that was given to SDS officers to invite any invitation from their wearies to any sort of social engagement, and to get as close as possible, as much contact as possible, in order to become part of their lives. This would be the best way of getting intelligence. He said this was the opposite of what they should have done. He said it was obscene, disgusting, again, all the superlatives. You know, he went through, there's so many documents he was shown with advice on certain sort of behaviors that he was just like, this is wrong. This is not what it should have been. This is not what best practice is. This is not what is being advised now. From a policing point of view, I don't think you could have got any more condemning of the SDS.
Oh my God, no, definitely. And certainly from a current police officer, and I think because of his role and stuff, his evidence will carry weight alongside all of our evidence. It kind of knocks all the lies and all the shit the other ones have said just like out of the way, you know, like that is just done, I think. You know, like he has, you know, just said everything that needed to be said, coming from a still a current serving police officer.
I mean, he's benefited a lot by being the last witness.
And such a good last witness as well.
Like, I mean,
at least we're ending on a high.
Yes, We talk in the past about how it feels like the phase is crescendo, usually with something really, really awful, an undercover officer being absolutely objectionable as possible. And I wondered how it was going to crescendo this time, but I mean, it's a welcome sort of crescendoing. And one of the things he said was that he could not apologize enough to those affected by the undercover police from the SDS for their activities, which I think, I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right. You cannot apologize enough.
Nope.
You know, that is very much the case. I think we have had so many officers say that such and such deserves an apology. There should be, you know, like, I would like to apologize to such and such, but not actually apologize.
Yeah.
It is unusual to have someone who,
and it's the widest, you know, apology that I've heard.
Yes.
It's the closest thing that I've heard throughout this entire process. That almost feels like it's not quite an apology to me, but it feels like it's getting there.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think the distinction is, you know, some of the practices around undercover policing will have changed.
Yes.
The practices around political policing have not.
No, right, absolutely.
I think that's where the kind of like distinction is.
I also think there's something about the fact the way in which he you know, when he talks about like, oh yes, you know, you don't report on these things, you don't do that. He's not saying that those officers shouldn't go into those worlds, shouldn't be part of people's lives at that level. Just they shouldn't be in the reports. which it's a paper distinction which does very little to impact upon the lives of those who are affected.
And it's that impact, I think, that is really key that hasn't been looked at properly, because it's all very well apologizing for it. It's all very well saying these groups shouldn't have been spied on. And obviously there is huge individual impact in terms of betrayal, but there's a political impact. There's the impact of what happened when that intelligence went to C Squad, when it went to CO11, in how we were policed on the streets, in what happened to us. And there's still the links that need to be made, because it did not sit in isolation with the SDS. It went out there, it had an impact. And I think there's been a lack of questions on that impact through the entirety of those managerial hearings. I woke up very agitated this morning thinking about impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Jon Boutcher will be back again this afternoon. Oh, we've had a comment just from Kathleen Quinn saying the police cannot continue blowing their own trumpet while marking their own homework. I mean, absolutely. And I mean, it's a farce that's been the case for so long. He will be back in this afternoon. The final session. I mean, there's plenty more for him to be asked about. As ever, I am frustrated by the fact that there sits a man who's got so much knowledge around undercover policing in general, and we're just looking at this very one small area, as significant as it is. And again, it speaks to the failure of the inquiry and the way in which it's structured, that it's all been siloed into different sections. And he will be back again for later tranches, but assuming they take place. He's got 2 further statements that he's already submitted to the inquiry, which haven't been introduced today because I'm only looking at the first one of them because of the way it all works. And this really speaks to the consultation that's been launched, which we'll be doing a response to. I'll do another video in about 5 minutes after we finish this one about it. There's some more comments here. One here from Proudhon. I apologise for everything I wasn't involved in. I can't remember anything I was involved in. Jon Boutcher, typical line, pigs come back. Absolutely. I mean, it should be noted actually just at the very end. I didn't meant to come on to that. He was presented with some reports that were filed whilst he was enrolled, because we got into the arrest of so many things. We got into the arrest of Rob Hastings, which was one of the triggers that led to we always understood as being a trigger to close down the unit, though he claims that this was just one example of many things. It was the deployments and the justifications that was the real issue for him. And we saw that the legally privileged
LPP, legal professional privilege.
The legal professional privilege material was included at great length in one of the reports, which was filed. And Jon Boutcher was like, I don't remember this. And it's like, well, this is exactly when you were enrolled.
And there's several other reports that do that. Around that, it goes into huge it goes into details of disagreements I had with the solicitor at the time. There's other ones that talk about barristers. It's a huge breach of legal privilege, and it was on his watch. And we've had this with quite a few of them, like even bloody Janet Williams, talking about my kid, oh, well, I missed it. Oh, well, great. Thanks.
Yeah, right. Another comment here from Martin Lowe. I do like the way in which he said that Bob Lambert should not have been in the back office during that time. I mean, yes, his condemnation of Bob Lambert, which we didn't actually name, he said there was an officer who fathered a child who had 4 relationships, who came back as detective inspector of the unit. He should never have been detective inspector. He should never have behaved that way. He should never have given the advice that he was giving to the undercover officers. He was quite condemning of him. There was so much. I mean, I agree entirely with the comments saying about how, yes, yet another lying pig in so many ways. Absolutely. All coppers are bastards, definitely. However, if you are going to watch any of the evidence of any of the undercover police managers who have appeared at this inquiry, and if you're watching this, I'm guessing you've watched some of it, I would recommend watching him. It is less rage-inducing than any of the others.
Oh, absolutely. And it is so good to hear someone just say these things. But completely agree. Cab all the way.
I'm gonna do we're gonna log off now. I'm gonna do another video in a moment with Kate Wilson, who's just arrived, about the consultation. So if you are watching now, this will end, but we will start another video in a minute.
And please stay tuned, because it's how you can help us save the inquiry, and we need all of your help to do it. So please tune in and listen to what Kate's got to say about that.
Nice one. See you all in a moment. Bye for now.